When a powerful billionaire's spoiled daughter drives everyone away, a humble single mom cleaner steps into her world and changes everything. What begins as chaos soon becomes a lesson in love, healing, and unexpected redemption. Broken heart, will pride or compassion win? Speech balloon, watch till the end and tell us, what would you have done in Racheal's place? Now the story begins. The morning light crept timidly through the half-drawn curtains of a tiny apartment on the city's edge. The kettle hissed, the smell of instant coffee mingled with the soft hum of gospel music playing from an old radio. Racheal stood by the counter, her uniform neatly pressed, her eyes ringed with quiet exhaustion. She stirred sugar into her coffee as her little girl, Amelia, sleepily shuffled into the kitchen, dragging her blanket like a cape. "Morning, sunshine," Racheal whispered, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "Mummy's got an early start today." Amelia frowned. "Another big house?" Racheal nodded. "Yes. Maybe this one will keep me for a while." She didn't say the rest, that the last family accused her of stealing, that the one before had replaced her for being too soft, that she was 2 weeks behind on rent. Her smile, though tired, was still warm. Love was her luxury. She tied her hair back, tucked her cleaning gloves into her bag, and whispered a quiet prayer. "God, let this one be different." Across town, McPherson's mansion awoke to silence. Polished marble floors reflected the cold light spilling from towering windows. Servants moved quietly, their footsteps muffled by Persian rugs. The air carried the scent of polish and money, and something heavier, loneliness. Alexander McPherson, CEO of McPherson Holdings, adjusted his tie before a mirror that never lied. He looked powerful, precise, and hollow. Behind the reflection, framed photographs of a smiling woman and a small child sat on the dresser, untouched by time. The intercom crackled. "Sir," came his assistant's voice, "Miss Sophia has refused breakfast again. The new nanny quit last night." McPherson closed his eyes briefly. "That's the 5th one this month." "She threw a vase, sir. Said no one listens to her. Hire another." His voice was clipped. "Someone competent this time." "Yes, sir." But even as he said it, McPherson knew the truth. Competence wasn't the problem. Connection was. Back in her neighborhood, Racheal hurried through the rain to the bus stop. Her worn shoes soaked easily, but she didn't complain. A message from a cleaning agency buzzed on her phone. "Urgent, live-in cleaning job at McPherson Estate. High pay. Immediate start. Shirididenemitvisi. Hartikikening." McPherson. Everyone knew that name. Power, luxury, intimidation. Her first thought, people like me don't belong in houses like that. Her second, but Amelia needs school fees. She texted back, "I'll take it." By noon, Racheal stood before the mansion's massive iron gates. The world on the other side looked unreal. Trimmed hedges, fountains whispering, a driveway long enough to get lost in. She hesitated, adjusted her bag strap, and walked through. Inside, the head housekeeper, Mrs. Lang, met her with a mixture of suspicion and formality. "You'll be assigned to the East Wing," she said crisply. "Avoid the child's quarters unless instructed." The last staff member made that mistake. Racheal blinked. The child. Mr. McPherson's daughter. Sophia. 10 years old. Brilliant but difficult. Racheal nodded. Understood. As she began dusting the grand piano, she felt eyes watching. She turned. A small figure stood in the hallway. A girl in a white nightgown, arms crossed, glare sharp enough to cut glass. "You're new," Sophia said flatly. Racheal smiled gently. "Yes, ma'am. I'll try not to be boring." The girl's lips twitched, almost a smile, before she turned and vanished down the corridor. Mrs. Lang whispered, "Don't engage. The last one tried that." But Racheal's heart ached. Beneath the child's defiance, she saw loneliness, the same loneliness that haunted her own eyes in the mirror some nights. Hours later, McPherson returned from work, his presence filling the house like thunder. Racheal bowed slightly when their paths crossed. "New cleaner?" he asked Mrs. Lang. "Yes, sir. Racheal Thompson. Agency sent her this morning." His gaze flicked over Racheal, modest uniform, calloused hands, calm eyes that didn't flinch. Something about her composure unsettled him. Keep her temporary, he said shortly. No one lasts here. Racheal pretended not to hear. But as she cleaned the staircase later that evening, she noticed Sophia sitting on the landing, watching her. Why do you do that? Sophia asked suddenly. Do what? Smile. You're just the cleaner. Racheal met her gaze with warmth that surprised even herself. Because smiles cost nothing, sweetheart. And they make the work lighter. The child didn't respond. But when Racheal moved to the next step, she caught Sophia mimicking the motion, dusting gently, like a quiet echo. Upstairs, Macpherson stood by the study door, unseen, watching. For a fleeting moment, he saw something he hadn't in years, his daughter listening. As night fell, Racheal left quietly, rain washing the driveway clean. She stopped at the bus stop and looked back at the mansion, the glow of a single window where Sophia's silhouette stood. She whispered to herself, maybe this one will be different. In the window above, Sophia whispered the same thing to no one. Have you ever met someone whose kindness changed your life, even for a moment? Tell us your story in the comments below. Morning sunlight spilled across the marble floors, painting pale gold lines over perfection. The mansion looked serene, deceptive peace before the storm. Racheal had been up since dawn, polishing the grand staircase when a sudden crash shattered the stillness. Glass splintered, followed by a scream. She froze. Get out! I said get out! The voice came from upstairs, high-pitched, furious, trembling. Racheal dropped her duster and rushed toward the sound, instincts overriding caution. In the art room, Sophia stood amid chaos, canvases overturned, brushes flung, paint streaked across the walls like bruises. A shattered jar of blue paint spread across the floor, pooling like a wound. The little girl was crying and shaking, though her expression was defiant. Who told you to come in here? She hissed when she saw Racheal. Racheal's breath caught. I heard a crash. I thought you might be hurt. I don't need help. Racheal stepped carefully over the mess, voice calm but steady. Everyone needs help sometimes. Even queens. Sophia blinked, momentarily thrown. I'm not a queen. Racheal smiled faintly. Could have fooled me. You've got the attitude. The child's lips twitched, half laugh, half sob. Then she scowled again and hurled another brush. It hit the wall beside Racheal, splattering yellow across her sleeve. Racheal didn't flinch. She looked at the stain and chuckled softly. Sunshine suits me. That startled Sophia more than shouting ever could. Racheal crouched down, careful to meet her eyes. It's okay, sweetheart. Messes can be cleaned, but hearts? If we stop caring about them, they stay broken. The room went still. Sophia's breathing slowed. For the first time in months, she didn't scream. Unseen from the doorway, Macpherson stood frozen. He had rushed upstairs when he heard his daughter's voice, ready to scold, to control, to command. But what he found was a cleaner kneeling calmly before his child, speaking with patience he hadn't managed in years. He wanted to interrupt, to reassert authority, but he couldn't move. Something about the sight, the quiet power of gentleness, pinned him to the moment. Sophia's small voice broke the silence. Do you ever stop smiling? Racheal thought for a second. When I sleep. Sometimes when I'm scared. What scares you? Losing people I care about. Sophia looked away, shoulders tightening. Everyone leaves me. Even Daddy. Racheal's heart stung. She didn't correct the child. She didn't promise it wasn't true. She just said softly, then I'll stay until you ask me to go. Sophia's eyes lifted, uncertain. You will. I will. Macpherson finally stepped inside. His voice, cool but shaky, cut the air. What's going on here? Sophia stiffened, retreating instantly, walls rebuilding around her. Racheal rose slowly, keeping her tone gentle. Just cleaning up a spill, sir. His gaze swept the chaos, the splattered paint, the child's flushed cheeks, the calm in Racheal's eyes. This is not part of your duties. No, sir. But it seemed important. Important. His jaw tightened. You're here to clean, not counsel. Racheal met his eyes. Sometimes, sir, cleaning means more than floors. The audacity of it caught him off guard. Her voice wasn't defiant, it was sincere, almost tender. And something inside him, something buried under years of grief and guilt, stirred. He turned sharply. Finish up and leave this room. I'll handle my daughter. But when he reached for Sophia's arm, she jerked away. Don't touch me, she cried, running past him. Her small feet echoed down the hallway, fading into silence. Macpherson stood frozen, hand half raised, shame flooding his chest. Racheal quietly bent to pick up the broken glass. You don't have to do that, he muttered. It's my job, she said, gently sweeping the shards. And someone has to make sure nobody gets hurt. Her tone wasn't accusatory, just heartbreakingly human. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. No one had spoken to him like that in years. Not with fear, not with flattery, but truth. He left without another word. Later that evening, when Racheal returned to the cleaning closet to put away supplies, she found something unexpected. A small folded paper lay on her cart. It was smudged with blue paint, a child's handwriting. Sorry. Her throat tightened. Beneath the word, Sophia had drawn a stick figure holding another's hand, both smiling. Racheal pressed the paper to her chest and smiled through tears. Messes can be cleaned, she whispered again, as if reminding herself. Meanwhile, Macpherson sat alone in his study, staring at his wife's photograph. He remembered her voice, soft and teasing. You can't buy love, Alex. You have to earn it with presence. He had failed that test miserably. The butler entered quietly. Sir, the cleaner handled the situation earlier with remarkable calm. The girl has been quiet since. Macpherson nodded absently, still staring at the photo. Keep her on. For now. In Sophia's room, the little girl sat by her window, clutching a crumpled tissue and whispering to herself. She said she'll stay till I ask her to go. For the first time in months, she slept without nightmares. Down in the servant quarters, Racheal whispered a short prayer before bed. Lord, I think you sent me here for more than a paycheck. Then she folded Sophia's note carefully and tucked it inside her Bible. Do you believe a simple act of kindness can change someone's heart? Tell us what you think in the comments. 3 days passed like a tension string, stretched, humming, waiting to snap. The mansion was silent again, but not peaceful. Macpherson threw himself into work, drowning in conference calls and contracts, as if empire building could erase fatherhood's ache. Sophia had stopped throwing tantrums but replaced noise with silence, a silence that screamed louder than any outburst. And Racheal, she kept to her duties, scrubbing and dusting like a ghost with a pulse. Everywhere she went, she felt eyes on her. Servants whispering, the butler watching, Macpherson glancing and pretending not to. Good morning, sir, Racheal said quietly as she entered the dining hall. Macpherson didn't look up from his tablet. Morning. His tone was clipped, polite, a wall of glass. Sophia sat across from him, head bowed over her untouched pancakes. Racheal set down a tray of fruit. Fresh berries today. No response. Silence thickened. It was the kind of silence that fills rooms where love once lived but pride took over. Racheal cleared her throat lightly. Miss Sophia, you liked strawberries the other day, right? Sophia's small fingers twitched, but she said nothing. Macpherson sighed, finally looking up. She doesn't need coaxing. She'll eat when she's ready. Racheal's eyes flicked to him, steady but kind. Sometimes a little coaxing is what helps us feel ready, sir. Their eyes met. A flash of challenge. He broke first, returning to his tablet. You seem to have opinions on everything, Miss Racheal. Only when it involves people who need gentleness, she replied softly. The butler froze mid-step. The air in the room turned electric. Sophia looked between them, eyes wide. She'd never seen anyone speak to her father that way, not with anger, but with quiet conviction. Then, for the first time in days, she reached for a berry and whispered, "They taste better when someone remembers you like them." Macpherson blinked, caught off guard. He lowered his tablet slowly, watching his daughter eat. Racheal smiled faintly and bowed her head. "Excuse me, sir." She turned to leave, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Later that afternoon, Racheal was polishing the glass doors that overlooked the garden when she heard his voice behind her. Why did you do that earlier? She turned, startled. McPherson stood in the doorway, hands in pockets, eyes unreadable. Do what, sir? Contradict me. In front of my daughter. Her brow furrowed. I didn't mean disrespect. I just spoke what I felt. You're an employee. Not a counselor. Not family. His words were sharp, too sharp. He regretted them instantly, but pride sealed his throat. Racheal took a slow breath. You're right, sir. I'm just the cleaner. But sometimes it takes a cleaner to see what's gathering dust. His eyes flashed. You think you understand me? No, she said softly. But I understand pain that hides behind work. That landed like a blow. He turned away, jaw tightening. You presume too much. Maybe, she whispered. But your daughter needs less silence and more love, Mr. McPherson. Money can't screw blonelines away. His head turned sharply, anger and shame warring in his expression. That's enough. Yes, sir. But as she turned to leave, he said quietly, You don't know what it's like to lose everything. She froze, the words slicing deep. Then she spoke, voice trembling but true. I lost my husband and my home the same month, sir. So maybe I do. Silence. McPherson's breath itched. Your husband. Racheal nodded, eyes glistening. Car accident. I was pregnant. Lost him before our baby's first birthday. McPherson looked away, his facade cracking. I'm sorry. It's all right, she said gently. We survive. Sometimes through work. Sometimes through kindness. For the first time, his voice softened. And sometimes through both. Their eyes met, something unspoken bridging the space between them. That evening, Racheal found Sophia sitting alone in the art room again. This time, there was no chaos, only quiet sketching. Hi, svete art, Racheal said softly. Can I come in? Sophia nodded. On the table was a new drawing, 3 figures. A tall man, a woman in an apron, and a child holding both their hands. Racheal's heart thudded. That's beautiful. Sophia smiled shyly. It's us. Racheal's lips parted, but she said nothing. She just hugged the little girl gently. Outside the door, McPherson soto da game, listening, unsing. Something inside him broke open, just a little more. He whispered under his breath, I can't let this happen. She's just an employee. Just. But even as he said it, the word just sounded hollow. That night, he called his lawyer. I want the cleaning staff rotated next month. Sir? The new cleaner seems. Just do it, he snapped. He hung up, but the command left a bitter taste. He knew what he was doing, building another wall before he could feel too much. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, staring at the window reflection, a lonely man in a perfect suit. From across the garden, he saw the faint light of the servant quarters and imagined Racheal reading bedtime stories to her twins. He could almost hear her laughter drifting through the trees, and for the first time in years, he envied warmth. He downed the drink, but it didn't burn enough. Have you ever built walls to protect yourself, only to realize they kept love out too? Share your thoughts in the comments. That night, McPherson dreamed of his wife again, her laughter echoing softly. You'll never find peace until you let yourself feel again, Alex. He woke before dawn, heart racing, and whispered to the empty room. I think I already have. It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday. De mansion gliamed under the morning sun, still, grand, unfailing. But life, as always, had other plans. Sophia had been unusually cheerful that morning. She'd even asked to go outside, something she hadn't done in months. McPherson, wary but hopeful, agreed. Racheal packed a light lunch, and the 3 of them, billionaire, cleaner, and child, stepped into the estate gardens together. No one would have guessed that by sundown, everything would change. Daddy, come push-me on the swing. Sophia called out, running ahead. McPherson hesitated. He'd hired people to maintain the estate, but never once had he joined his daughter in play. Still, the look in her eyes, that rare, bright spark, made him follow. Racheal watched from a few steps behind, smiling as Sophia squealed with laughter. For the first time, McPherson smiled too. It was small, uncertain, but real. She's happy, Racheal murmured. He glanced sideways at her. She's different with you. Racheal shrugged lightly. Maybe she just needed someone who listens without trying to fix her. Her words lingered. He looked down at his hands used to signing deals, not catching joy. When Sophia jumped off the swing and ran toward a pond filled with koi fish, Racheal called out, "Careful, sweetheart. The edge is slippery." Sophia giggled. "I'm fine." Seconds later, a splash. "Daddy!" Both adults bolted. McPherson dove toward the water's edge as Racheal knelt beside him. Sophia had slipped halfway in, clinging to the slick stone border, her small hands trembling. "Hold on, baby," Racheal cried, reaching out. McPherson grabbed his daughter by the arms, hauling her up and into his chest. She coughed, sputtering water, terrified. "I've got you," he whispered, holding her tighter than he ever had before. Racheal wrapped a towel from the picnic around Sophia's shoulders, rubbing gently. "You're okay, honey. You're safe." The little girl began to sob, not from fear, but release. McPherson's throat tightened as he looked at Racheal. Their hands brushed over the towel, and he didn't pull away. "Thank you," he whispered, voice raw. Racheal smiled softly. "Any time, sir. That's what hearts are for, holding, not hiding." They barely made it back inside before the skies broke open. Thunder rolled like fury, and rain slammed against the mansion windows. The sudden downpour knocked out the power, leaving the great estate shrouded in darkness. Sophia whimpered and clung to Racheal's skirt. "It's okay, sweetheart. It's just rain singing too loud." Racheal pulled her close, while McPherson grabbed a flashlight and candles. The storm forced them together in the library, the only room with a fireplace. Racheal lit candles while McPherson struggled with old matches, clearly unused to small domestic acts. When he finally managed to spark the fire, Racheal teased gently, "Not bad for a billionaire." He chuckled, genuinely, surprisingly. "I used to be good at this, before I forgot how to live." The words slipped out before he could stop them. Silence followed, not awkward, but thick with understanding. Sophia had fallen asleep on the rug, her head on Racheal's lap, soft snores rising between thunderclaps. Racheal looked down at the child, then at McPherson. "She loves you, you know." His voice was quiet. "I don't deserve it." Racheal shook her head. "Love doesn't check resumes, sir. It just finds broken people and stays." He stared into the fire, the flames flickering in his eyes. "You speak like someone who's lost and found too much." She smiled sadly. "Maybe because I have." They talked in whispers while the storm raged outside. About childhoods, grief, lost dreams. McPherson confessed he hadn't laughed since his wife's funeral. Racheal admitted she hadn't felt truly seen since her husband died. Each confession peeled away another layer of pride. When lightning flashed, Racheal flinched, not from fear, but memory. "My husband, he died on a night like this," she said softly. "We were supposed to drive home from church. A truck lost control." McPherson's hand tightened around his glass.
"I'm sorry, Racheal."
"Truly." She smiled faintly. "Pain changes you, but it also opens your eyes to other people's pain. That's why I didn't walk away from your daughter." He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw strength wrapped in gentleness. "She's drawn to you," he said. "You've done what no therapist, no nanny, no teacher could." Racheal's eyes glistened. She just needed someone who stayed when it got messy. Their eyes locked. For a heartbeat, the air between them shifted, too close, too honest. McPherson looked away first. "You should get some rest." "I'm fine here." He hesitated, then draped a blanket over her shoulders. His fingers brushed her arm, a fleeting, electric touch. For once, he didn't apologize for it. When dawn came, the storm had passed, but something new lingered, an invisible thread binding their hearts. Sophia woke, yawning. "Daddy, we didn't die," she said cheerfully. McPherson laughed, a sound so free it startled both women. Racheal smiled, eyes soft. "Looks like even storms bring blessings." He met her gaze. Some storms wash away what should never have been buried. It wasn't just a line. It was a confession. That morning, as she gathered her cleaning supplies, Racheal found herself pausing at the door. Macpherson stood by the fireplace, holding Sophia's hand. He turned toward Racheal, expression gentle but conflicted. "Thank you for last night." She nodded. "You're welcome." A moment of silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just charged. He added softly, "Maybe stay a little longer." Rachel's lips curved in a smile that said everything words couldn't. "As long as I'm needed, sir." Sometimes life forces us close to the very people we're meant to heal with. Do you believe everything happens for a reason? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. The storm had passed, but something about the mansion felt different, softer, almost alive again. Servants moved quietly, whispering about the strange calm that had followed the thunder. For the first time in years, laughter had echoed in those halls, and everyone knew it came from Sophia's room. Inside, Racheal sat beside Sophia, helping her braid a doll's hair. The little girl hummed softly. "Do you think Daddy will play with us again?" she asked innocently. Racheal smiled. "If you ask nicely, maybe he will." Sophia grinned. "He smiled yesterday. I saw it. Real one. It looked funny." Racheal chuckled. "Sometimes smiles come from rusty hearts, sweetie. Takes time to get used to them again." Sophia giggled. "Then I'll make him practice." The sound filled the room, pure, unguarded joy. Outside, Macpherson stood quietly in the doorway, unseen, watching the two people who had somehow become his peace. Later that afternoon, Racheal went to tidy the study. She dusted carefully, not out of duty, but respect. On the desk, she noticed a photograph in a silver frame, slightly turned away. She hesitated, then picked it up. It was Macpherson and his late wife, Lydia. Her smile radiant, his arm around her shoulders, both glowing with youth and love. A note in Lydia's handwriting was taped to the back. "Promise me if anything happens, you'll keep smiling for Sophia." Rachel's heart twisted. The office door opened. Macpherson entered, freezing at the sight of her holding the frame. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, setting it down. He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders visible. "No, it's fine. It's just, I haven't looked at that photo in years." He sat down, rubbing his temples. "She died giving birth to Sophia. I blamed the world, and then myself." Rachel's eyes softened. "So you buried yourself in work." He gave a bitter laugh. "Work doesn't talk back. Doesn't cry. Doesn't remind you of everything you've lost." She stepped closer, voice gentle but firm. "But it doesn't love you either." He looked up sharply, not offended but struck. "You don't understand." "I do," she interrupted softly. "When my husband died, I stopped laughing too. I told myself I had to be strong for my babies. But really, I was scared. Scared that if I felt again, I'd break completely." He stared at her, something raw flickering in his eyes. "And did you?" She nodded. "I broke. But then I realized broken things can still shine, if someone believes they're worth mending." Their eyes locked. The air between them thickened with emotion, quiet, magnetic. Macpherson swallowed hard. "You make it sound simple." "It's not," she said with a small, sad smile. "It's just possible." That evening, as Racheal left the study, the butler, Mr. Grant, approached. He looked uncomfortable, torn between duty and concern. "Miss Racheal," he said lowly, "a word of advice, be careful. The master doesn't open up easily." She frowned. "I'm not trying to make him open up. I'm just trying to help his daughter." He hesitated. People who help Mr. Macpherson often get hurt in the process. The last employee who cared too much was dismissed without warning. Racheal stiffened. "Why?" "Because she reminded him of his wife." The words hit her like a cold gust. She turned away, shaken. Later that night, Sophia slipped quietly into Rachel's small room in the servant quarters. "Miss Racheal," she whispered, clutching her teddy bear. "Can you sleep here tonight?" Racheal smiled softly. Of course, sweetheart. What's wrong?
Sophia's eyes shimmered. I hard daddy kring.
Rachel's heart clenched. Oh, baby. He was holding Mommy's picture. I wanted to hug him, but I was scared. Racheal wrapped her arms around the little girl. He's hurting, just like you. But sometimes adults forget how to ask for hugs. Sophia looked up, serious. Then maybe you should hug him for me. Racheal laughed quietly, brushing a tear away. Maybe I will if he lets me. The next morning, Racheal went to clean the office again. As she arranged the papers, a manila folder slipped from the shelf. When she picked it up, the label caught her eye. R. Henderson, background verification. Her chest tightened, her maiden name. She opened it instinctively. Inside were documents, her application, references, and a page stamped, Private Investigation. Her stomach dropped. McPherson had investigated her. At that moment, his voice came from behind her. I see you found it. She turned, guilt and hurt mingling in her face. You had me investigated? His tone was defensive. You came into my home, around my daughter. I had to know who you were. You could have asked me, she shot back. I don't trust easily, he said sharply. People lie for less than a paycheck. And people tell the truth when no one bothers to listen, she countered, eyes glistening.
Detención craque like thunder.
Rachel's voice trembled. Do you really think I'd ever hurt your daughter?
After everything.
He hesitated, guilt flashing in his eyes. No, I just what? She whispered. Needed to control everything because you're afraid of feeling again? Silence. He couldn't answer. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, I thought you were different. Then she walked out, her footsteps echoing down the marble hallway like a heartbeat fading away. That night, Sophia found her father sitting alone by the fireplace. Daddy, she whispered, did you make Miss Racheal cry? McPherson froze. What? She's sad. You said she could stay forever. You lied. He swallowed hard.
Sophia, it is complicated.
She shook her head, tears forming. No, it's simple. You always push away people who love me. The child's honesty hit him harder than any boardroom blow. When she stormed off, leaving him in silence, he whispered to the empty room. Maybe I do. Sometimes we sabotage the very people sent to heal us. Have you ever pushed someone away out of fear? Share your thoughts below. That night, Racheal packed her small suitcase. Her hands trembled, not from anger, but heartbreak. She glanced at the note Sophia had drawn, the stick figures holding hands. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, I promised I'd stay until she asked me to go. She didn't ask, but maybe her father just did. The morning after Rachel's resignation note lay quietly on the desk, the mansion felt wrong. Too quiet. Even the housekeepers moved slower, like the rhythm of life itself had left with her. Sophia refused breakfast. The usually disciplined staff didn't dare mention Rachel's name, but every plate, every empty corner, whispered it. McPherson sat at the table, untouched coffee cooling by his hand. He'd slept in his study again. Not that sleep ever came. When Sophia walked in, her hair uncombed and her teddy bear dragging, he looked up, startled.
Sweetheart, come sit.
I'm not hungry, she snapped. He blinked. You always have breakfast. Not without Miss Racheal. He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Sophia, she's not coming back. Sophia glared up at him, eyes blazing like her mother's once did. You made her cry. Her words cut clean, and he had no defense. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did, she cried, voice trembling. You always mean to when you're scared. The child's lip quivered. You scared Mommy away too. The words hit him like a blade twisting in his chest. He tried to speak, but nothing came. She stormed off, slamming her door behind her. And for the first time, Alexander McPherson, billionaire, tycoon, and master of every boardroom battle, felt completely powerless. Across town, Racheal carried her small suitcase down the cracked steps of her apartment. Her twins, David and Maya, clung to her legs. Mommy, Why can't you work for Sophia anymore? Maya asked softly. Racheal knelt to their level. Sometimes grown-ups disagree, sweetheart. But we still love the people we leave behind. David frowned. So you love Sophia? Racheal smiled faintly. Very much. She looked up at the gray sky. And maybe her father too. Her own words startled her. Had she really said that out loud? But deep down, she already knew the truth. Somewhere between dusting his bookshelves and calming his storms, she'd fallen for the man behind the walls. She sighed and lifted her bag. Come on, kids. We'll find something new. Back in the mansion, Sophia refused to attend her piano lesson. I don't care if Daddy says I have to, she shouted at the tutor. I only played because Miss Racheal liked it. Then she locked herself in her room. When Macpherson came home early, Mr. Grant intercepted him nervously. Sir, Miss Sophia has barricaded her door. He frowned. What do you mean barricaded? With her toy chest and a chair, sir. Macpherson stormed upstairs and knocked gently. Sophia, sweetheart, it's Daddy. Go away, came the muffled sob. He sighed. We can talk about Racheal. Then bring her back. His voice cracked. It's not that simple. Then I don't want to talk to you. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Macpherson leaned his forehead against the door, eyes shut. He could handle business mergers worth billions, but not this. Not the broken voice of the only person he'd sworn to protect. That night, rain began again. Macpherson sat in the living room, staring at the fire. He hadn't touched dinner. Mr. Grant appeared quietly. Sir, Miss Sophia refuses to sleep. He nodded tiredly. I'll go. As he rose, the butler hesitated. Forgive me for saying this, sir, but perhaps it's time you humbled yourself. For both of them. Macpherson turned sharply, surprised. You think I haven't? Mr. Grant met his gaze. No, sir. I think you're trying to do it with pride still in your hands. The words lingered long after the butler left. Minutes later, Macpherson grabbed his coat and car keys. He didn't know what he'd say. He just knew he had to go. Racheal opened her small apartment door to find him standing there, soaked, disheveled, and somehow more human than she'd ever seen. Mr. Macpherson, she breathed, startled. What are you doing here? He took off his wet coat, water dripping onto the worn carpet. I came to apologize. She crossed her arms, defensive but trembling. You already made your opinion of me clear. I was wrong, he said. Her eyes widened slightly. He stepped closer, voice rough. You were right. I am afraid of feeling. Afraid of losing again. But pushing you away only proved how empty I've become. Her throat tightened. You don't need to say this. Yes, I do. His voice broke. Sophia hasn't eaten since you left. She said I scared you away, like I scared her mother away. The pain in his eyes was unbearable. Racheal swallowed, tears forming. She needs you, Alexander. Not your guilt. Just you. He nodded slowly. I need her too. And I need you. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unspoken. Please, he said softly. Come back. Her heart ached. Every instinct screamed to say yes. But the past had taught her caution. I'll come back, she said finally, voice shaking. For Sophia. He smiled faintly. For now, that's enough. When the mansion door opened the next morning, Sophia froze mid-step. Miss Racheal, she gasped. Racheal crouched and opened her arms. The little girl ran into her embrace, sobbing with joy. Macpherson watched quietly from the stairs, and for once, he didn't interrupt. He let them have that moment. Because in that moment, he realized something profound. Love doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes softly, through forgiveness, through return. Over the following days, warmth slowly returned to the mansion. Sophia played piano again. Macpherson joined them for dinner. And Racheal, though cautious, laughed more easily than before. One evening, as she tucked Sophia in, the child whispered, Miss Racheal, Are you staying forever this time? Racheal smiled through tears. If your daddy lets me. From the doorway, McPherson's voice answered quietly. He will. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing love over pride. Have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you deeply? Share your thoughts. As Racheal left Sophia's room, McPherson was waiting in the hall. She's sleeping, he asked softly. Yes. He nodded, eyes gentle now. Thank you for coming back. Racheal smiled faintly. Thank your daughter. She's the brave one. He chuckled. Maybe she gets that from you. Their eyes met. No words, no touch, just understanding. The night air between them felt lighter than it had in years. For a few fleeting weeks, peace had returned to the McPherson mansion. The halls no longer echoed with loneliness. Sophia's laughter was once again the soundtrack of home. But deep beneath the fragile calm, unspoken feelings churned like an underground storm. Racheal tried to ignore them, the way McPherson's eyes softened when she entered a room. How his voice lowered when he spoke her name. How his presence both comforted and unsettled her. She told herself it was gratitude, not love. But every time their hands brushed while helping Sophia with her homework, her heart said otherwise. And McPherson. He had never known fear quite like this. He'd faced hostile takeovers, courtroom battles, and sleepless nights building empires. But nothing terrified him more than the possibility of losing her too. It was a quiet Friday evening. Sophia had fallen asleep early after a school event, and Racheal was clearing the dining table. McPherson entered the room, sleeves rolled up, tie loose, a rare human sight. You don't have to do that, he said. She smiled faintly. It's what I'm paid for. He stepped closer. No, Racheal. What you've done can't be paid for. She froze. There was something in his tone, soft, reverent, dangerous. He took a deep breath. When I lost Emily, I thought my heart had died with her. But since you walked in, I've started to feel again. You brought light back into my daughter's life, and mine. Racheal's throat tightened. McPherson. Alexander, he corrected gently. She swallowed hard. Alexander, please don't say things you can't mean. I mean every word, he said, stepping closer. You've become more than a blessing to us. You've become our hope. Her eyes shimmered with tears. You don't understand. I can't. He hesitated, searching her face. You can't what? I can't fall for someone like you, she whispered. Why not? Because you'll wake up one morning and realize I'm just your cleaner. Silence. The words hung like shards of glass between them. His expression softened, pained. You're not just anything, Racheal. But before he could say more, she stepped back, voice trembling. Please, don't make this harder. She turned and left the room, leaving him standing there, shattered. The next day, the storm broke. It began with whispers. Staff gossiping about how the cleaner seemed too comfortable around the boss. By afternoon, it had reached the boardroom. McPherson's cold-faced investors approached him with concerns about optics. One of them, a particularly smug man named Harold Crew, smirked. Sir, people are starting to talk. About you and the help. McPherson's eyes darkened. You're out of line. Just a friendly warning, Harold said smoothly. Public image is fragile, especially when custody battles or legacy trusts are involved. McPherson dismissed the room, but his pulse was pounding. Legacy, custody, optics, all the words that had kept him emotionally safe, now suffocating him. He found Racheal later in the garden, trimming the white roses with Sophia. Racheal, a word, he said curtly. She blinked, startled by his tone. Of course. When Sophia went inside, he turned to her, tension coiled tight. I heard things today, he began. About us. Her eyes widened. Us. Yes. Rumors. Staff talk. It's affecting business, and I need to handle it. She nodded slowly. So, what are you saying? He looked away. Maybe it's best if we create some distance for a while. She went still. Distance. For your sake and mine. Her voice cracked. After everything we've been through? Racheal. No, say it, she demanded. You're ashamed of me, aren't you? His silence answered for him. Tears filled her eyes, but her voice didn't waver. I thought you were different. I thought maybe. She stopped herself, shaking her head. Never mind. I was wrong. She turned to leave, but he caught her arm. Racheal, please, I'm just trying to protect you. She faced him, eyes blazing. You're protecting yourself, from feeling, from judgment, from love. The pain in her voice cut him open. Maybe you're right, he whispered. Maybe I'm not built for this. She stared at him for a long moment, the man who had once seemed invincible, and felt nothing but heartbreak. Then she pulled free. Then you don't deserve it. And she walked away. That night, Sophia overheard the staff whispering that Miss Racheal is leaving again. She ran to her father's study, tears streaming. Daddy! You promised she'd stay forever. He looked up, guilt consuming him. Sophia! You broke it again, she screamed. Why do you keep breaking everything we love? Before he could stop her, she bolted out into the rain, barefoot, crying, disappearing into the dark garden. Racheal, already packing her things upstairs, heard the commotion and rushed out. Where's Sophia? She shouted. She ran out, a maid cried. Without hesitation, Racheal sprinted into the storm. She found Sophia near the pond, slipping in the mud, crying uncontrollably. Baby, it's okay, I'm here, she called out. But Sophia slipped and fell into the shallow, rain-swollen water. Racheal plunged in after her, pulling the trembling child into her arms. By the time Macpherson reached them, they were both drenched and shivering. He dropped to his knees beside them. Racheal! She held Sophia close, glaring up at him. She almost drowned because of us. Her words were a dagger of truth. Macpherson looked at his daughter, sobbing against Racheal's shoulder, and something in him finally broke. He whispered, voice trembling, I can't keep doing this. Racheal looked at him through tears. Then stop hiding. She doesn't need your money, she needs your heart. He met her gaze, utterly undone. And for the first time in his life, Alexander Macpherson cried. That night, Sophia slept between them on the couch. Racheal holding one hand, Macpherson the other. The house was quiet again. But this time, it wasn't emptiness. It was exhaustion, regret, and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, this was what breaking open looked like before healing began again. Sometimes love hurts most when we're closest to healing. Would you forgive someone who pushed you away out of fear? Tell us in the comments. The morning after the storm, the mansion felt fragile, like a wound that had stopped bleeding but hadn't yet healed. Sophia was still asleep, her tiny frame curled beneath blankets in the guest room, watched over by a nurse. Macpherson hadn't moved from the couch all night. His suit was still damp, his eyes hollow. Mr. Grant entered quietly with a cup of coffee. You should rest, sir. Macpherson shook his head. I've rested enough in my life when I should have been fighting. The butler nodded, understanding. Miss Racheal. He swallowed. She left. The older man sighed deeply. And what are you going to do about it this time? Macpherson's gaze drifted to the window where dawn broke faintly through the fog. I honestly don't know. All I ever do is break the things I love. Across town, Racheal sat on her narrow bed, hair still damp, hands trembling. Her twins were at a neighbor's for the morning, leaving her alone in the small, dim room. She stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror. A woman who had just walked away from the richest man in the city. A woman whose heart felt like it had been ripped out twice. Why did I fall for him? She whispered to the silence. The room offered no answer. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mr. Grant. Sophia's safe. She keeps asking for you. Racheal pressed the phone to her chest, tears welling. Sophia's face flashed before her, the smile, the stubbornness, the piano songs. And then Macpherson's face, broken, wet with rain, eyes full of regret. Her heart ached. He had hurt her, yes. But he had also tried, really tried, to change. Still, was that enough? Macpherson stood by Sophia's bedside, watching her breathe. For once, he didn't see the reflection of his late wife in her. He saw Sophia as her own person. Alive, wounded, beautiful. He knelt, taking her small hand in his. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he whispered. "I thought being strong meant never breaking. But you and Miss Racheal taught me that love means breaking together." Her tiny fingers curled around his. In that fragile grasp, something shifted inside him. The steel walls he had built began to crumble for good. He rose with quiet resolve. It was time to choose love, not in words, but in action. Racheal was about to leave for her next cleaning job when she heard a knock. Opening the door, she found Mr. Grant, the butler, standing there in his pressed suit, holding a sealed envelope. He smiled kindly. "He didn't know if you'd read it, but he hoped you might." Racheal hesitated, then took it with trembling hands. When she was alone again, she unfolded the letter. It was written in Macpherson's neat, sharp handwriting, the kind of writing that once signed million-dollar contracts. Now shaky with emotion. "Racheal, I've lived my whole life chasing control of my company, my image, even my grief. You shattered that control the moment you looked at me like I was just a man, not a title. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for your grace, not for my sake, but for Sophia's. She needs you. And I need you too. You once said I didn't understand love. You were right. Love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing, again and again, even when it hurts. If you can find it in your heart, come home. If not, thank you for teaching me how to feel again. Alexander." The paper trembled in her hands as tears blurred the ink. 4 minutes, she couldn't move. Then she whispered to herself, "He finally said it." And for the first time, her tears weren't from pain, but release. Back at the mansion, Sophia stirred awake. "Daddy!" He sat beside her. "I'm here." She blinked sleepily. "Did Miss Racheal come back?" He smiled sadly. "Not yet." Sophia frowned. "Did you say sorry?" "Yes." "Did you mean it?" His throat tightened. "With all my heart." She sat up, eyes bright. "Then we have to go find her." He blinked. "What?" "Come on, Daddy. You always say never give up in business. So why are you giving up on love?" The simplicity of her words hit him harder than any boardroom truth ever could. He laughed softly through tears. "You're right." Then he scooped her up. "Let's go." Racheal was standing outside her children's school when a sleek black car pulled up. The door opened, and out stepped Macpherson, holding Sophia's hand. Her breath caught. Sophia ran forward first, shouting, "Miss Racheal!" Racheal knelt, catching the child in her arms. "Oh, sweetheart!" Macpherson approached quietly, rain-soaked again though the sky was clear. "I'm sorry," he said simply. She looked up at him, cautious, trembling, hopeful. He continued, voice breaking. "I let fear ruin too much. I'm done hiding. I don't care what the world says. I just care that my daughter smiles and that you're part of our lives." Racheal's lips parted. "Alexander!" He stepped closer, eyes wet. "You once said you couldn't fall for someone like me. But maybe I'm supposed to fall for someone like you." The air between them stilled. Sophia looked between them, grinning. "Does this mean we can be a family now?" Racheal laughed through tears. "We'll see, sweetheart." That night, as the sun set behind the city skyline, Racheal stood at the mansion gate again. This time, not as an employee, but as a woman choosing love. Macpherson waited at the door, heart in his throat. When she stepped inside, he exhaled, as if his world had just returned to color. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Love doesn't wait for certainty. It chooses anyway." He smiled faintly. "Then let's choose. If love demanded you to risk your pride, would you? Tell us below. Your story might inspire someone tonight." As the three of them sat together that evening, Macpherson, Racheal, and Sophia, the mansion finally felt like a home again. But there was still one act left, the moment where the circle completes, where everything that began in cold emptiness ends in warmth and light. The days that followed felt like spring after a long winter. The mansion that once echoed with silence now hummed softly with life. Music, laughter, footsteps that carried warmth instead of weight. Sophia woke each morning to the smell of pancakes, Racheal's doing. Macpherson would come downstairs in rolled sleeves, smiling in a way his board members would never believe possible. There were still moments of awkwardness, Racheal adjusting to her new role, Macpherson learning to share control, but they were learning together. Every day was a small act of courage. Every laugh, a victory over grief. One evening, they sat together in the garden, Sophia chasing butterflies while the adults watched. "I used to hate this place," Racheal said softly. "Too cold, too perfect. It reminded me of everything I couldn't have." Macpherson smiled. "And now?" She looked at Sophia. "Now it feels like home." He nodded, voice low. "You made it one." A gentle silence settled between them. The kind that didn't need to be filled, because it already meant everything. A week later, Racheal found a note on her pillow. "Meet me in the garden after Sophia's asleep." Curious, she followed the path outside, lit by tiny lanterns lining the hedges. At the end stood Macpherson, nervous for once, holding something behind his back. She smiled softly. "What's this about?" He exhaled. "You said once that love chooses, even when it hurts." "Yes." He brought out a small velvet box. "I want to keep choosing you, every morning, every storm, every laugh." Racheal's breath caught. He opened the box to reveal a simple ring, elegant, not flashy. The kind that spoke of forever, not wealth. "Racheal," he said quietly, voice breaking, "will you marry me?" Her eyes filled instantly. "Alexander." He stepped closer, nervous. "I know I'm far from perfect. I know I've hurt you. But I've never been surer of anything than this." She looked at him for a long, trembling moment, then smiled through her tears. "Yes." He froze. "Yes." She laughed softly. "Yes, Alexander Macpherson. I'll marry you." He slipped the ring onto her finger, relief washing through him like sunlight. And just then, Sophia appeared at the door, grinning ear to ear. "Does this mean I get to wear a princess dress?" They both burst into laughter. Macpherson looked at his daughter, then at Racheal, and for the first time in years, everything felt exactly right. 3 months later, under a canopy of white roses, Racheal walked down the aisle. The ceremony wasn't grand, no media, no lavish crowd. Just a few friends, Sophia as the flower girl, and the gentle whisper of wind through the trees. Macpherson stood waiting, eyes glistening. When she reached him, he whispered, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." She smiled. "And you're the bravest." The vows were simple, heartfelt. "I vow to never let pride silence my heart again." Macpherson. "And I vow to never stop believing in love, no matter how impossible it seems." Racheal. When they kissed, Sophia clapped so loudly everyone laughed. And the sound carried through the gardens like a promise fulfilled. Months later, a quiet afternoon found them in the same music room where Sophia once screamed and shattered vases. Now, sunlight streamed through open curtains. Sophia sat at the piano, playing the song Racheal had taught her. Her little fingers stumbled, then steadied, and this time, no one scolded her. Macpherson stood behind them, hands resting gently on Racheal's shoulders. When the last note lingered, Sophia turned, eyes bright. "Did I do okay?" Racheal smiled. "You did perfectly." Macpherson nodded. "Your mother would be proud." Sophia ran to them, hugging both tightly. And in that moment, the three of them, bound not by blood but by choice. The mansion finally felt alive again. That night, as the city lights twinkled in the distance, Racheal stood by the balcony, looking out. Macpherson joined her quietly, wrapping an arm around her waist. "You still think all this is too much for a girl from the flats?" he teased. She smiled. "No. I think it was waiting for the right kind of love to fill it." He kissed her forehead. "You filled everything I didn't even know was empty." She rested her head on his shoulder. "And you taught me that sometimes, even broken hearts can build a home." The wind brushed softly around them, carrying the faint sound of Sophia's laughter from inside. "Pure, Elling, eternal." Just as the camera would fade out, Sophia's little voice would echo through the hall. "Daddy, Miss Racheal, come dance with me." Racheal laughed. "We're coming, sweetheart." Macpherson took her hand, smiling. "Mrs. Macpherson, shall we?" She grinned. "Always." And together, hand in hand, they walked toward the sound of music, toward the light that had once seemed so far away. Sometimes love doesn't come easy. It comes after storms, pride, and pain. But when it finally arrives, it heals generations. What part of this story touched you most? Comment below. Your story might touch someone else's heart today.